All right, viewers, thank you very much for staying with Facing the Nation. Unfortunately, our minister within the Ministry of Communities is not here in our studios yet. But what I'll do, I'd like to talk for a few minutes about an issue that has, it's for some people, it's controversial. In my opinion, it is unfortunate, and of course, that's suicide. There seems to have been a recent upsurge in suicides. And the saddest thing is that we have 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds committing suicide or attempting suicide. I'd like to take this opportunity, even before I show you the clip, because what I'm going to do, the president, His Excellency Brigadier David Granger, last week, and not only last week, he has been talking about this since we were in opposition. He keeps saying, and I quite agree with him, we have a problem in our country because happy people don't kill themselves. The problem with that, though, is how do you really know somebody is unhappy? Because people are so guarded these days that you can have someone walking around in your house and, it is easy to pretend and it's very easy to fake something. And you could even have a 12 or a 13-year-old in your house and they seem fine to you, but the bottom line is that they're actually not fine. Something is wrong inside. On the other hand, we have households where there are people, and in this case, whether it's children or whether it's adults, we have those households that the signs are there. They're either too quiet or they're always depressed. The signs of depression are there. And you brush it aside. All right, they'll be all right. They'll snap out of it. But you can't assume that they'll be okay, and you can't assume that they'll snap out of it. So today, not only parents, I want to urge all family members, pay attention to each other. Pay attention to your loved ones, especially those young boys and young girls in your homes. I mean, and in a sense, I do agree with this. There are people who are saying that it's probably even a demon that's attacking or preying on the weak in society. So what we need to do is pray a little more. And when I say pray, in this sense, I mean the Pray, pray. We need to pray a little more, and we need to, and this is for those of you who are believers. Whether you believe in Christianity, whether you believe in Hinduism, if you're a Muslim, it doesn't matter. Whoever is your superior being, I think we need to get together as a nation and start instituting prayers and so on. People say that religion doesn't solve problems, but I came from a house that believe in prayers, believe in the Bible, believe in going to church, believe in the word. So that is what I know. So that is what I'm talking to you about today. For those of you who don't necessarily believe that there is a superior being, I'm asking you to pay attention to your loved ones. Speak with them. I mean, sometimes someone is depressed and you never know. All they really need is somebody to listen to them. So you need to do much more. And I think as a country, as a nation, we need to understand that this issue is not an issue that you can solve, that you can find a solution as one group. We need to come together to find a solution for this. I mean, there are people like Lisa Punch, that is the reigning Miss Guyana World, who did very, very well in China, and she has been doing so well even before she left her Beauty with a Purpose platform. I know she focused a lot on the issue of suicide, and she has been able to reach so many of our young persons. We've even had her on this program a few months ago, and she's been doing a lot. But what I'm saying, I mean, the president has been saying a lot too. Again, you will hear from him in the last week's edition of the Public Interest. He did address this, and he did talk about a meeting that was being called to address the issue of suicide, because he's really, really concerned about that and the fact that it is taking away what is Guyana's most precious resource, and of course those are our human resources. So I strongly believe that this is not an issue that one person has the answer to. We need to come together, whether it be the churches, and when I say the churches, I don't mean the churches of themselves doing their own thing. I mean the churches mixed with the other non-governmental organizations, mixed with civil society, mixed with the government, mixed with people like activists like Lisa Punch, and everybody who's been talking about it. I mean, yes, for example, right now there is this big thing going on, for those of you who don't follow social networks, for those of you who don't follow Facebook, currently there's this big thing going on Facebook. We're calling on people to change their profile photos to embrace life, live life, and be happy. Fine, these are all nice and well for the optics of it, but at the end of the day, I do not believe that that alone will help a potential suicide victim. You have to do more than that. It's not just about changing a profile photo. Sometimes these people who are thinking about suicide, they're not going on Facebook to see anything. They have their own internal, their own mental issues that they're dealing with. So again, I am saying that we need to come together as a country. If for no other reason, we need to come together as a country to address this issue of suicide. It is not one person's problem. No one person has the answers. I mean, some of my personal opinions on it, people may not find favor with it. But at the end of the day, each of us were raised different. We have different things to deal with every day, and we have different environments that we deal with every day. So everyone's experience will be different. So again, I am calling on us as a nation to come together and to address the issue of suicide. What I'm going to do now is ask the operator to pull up the clip of last week's program of the public interest, where in the first 15 minutes or so of that edition, His Excellency, the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Brigadier David Granger, addressed the issue of suicide, and he talked about what his government plans to do and how his government will address that. But also keep in mind that I'm saying that it's not just about the government or a non-governmental organization. It's about Guyana coming together to address the issue of suicide. This is Facing the Nation. Stay tuned. Hello again, Guyana, and welcome to the Public Interest. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us for this first edition of the Public Interest for the year 2016. And the last time we met, I did say Happy New Year to you, but there's no harm in saying it again. So happy 2016 to all of Guyana. On today's program, as always, is the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, His Excellency Brigadier David Granger. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you, sir. And joining us are two journalists, one from the National Communications Network, NCN, Ms. Onika Jones. Welcome, Onika. And Ms. Abina Rockcliffe from the Kaitro News. Welcome, Abina. All right. Your Excellency, it's unfortunate that we have to revisit what has basically become a sad topic for Guyana. We seem to not be able to get the scourge of suicide under control. Many believe that even if, with all the measures being put in place, whether it be by governments or by non-governmental organizations, that if people are determined to kill themselves, they're still going to do it anyway, despite the measures put in place. Is there anything extraordinary that your government would do for 2016 and beyond to address the scourge of suicide?
Actually, in a few hours' time, I am convening an emergency meeting. I think the number of suicides in Guyana, the variety of causes, the people who are involved, all demand emergency attention. And I have summoned a meeting of 6 ministers and maybe some other NGOs later this morning, Thursday, the 7th of January. So that we can chart a course. I do know that the Ministry of Health launched a suicide prevention strategy in September, 4 months ago. And I would like to get an update on how far the implementation of that strategy has gone, whether there needs to be any additional effort to expedite or speed up the implementation so that we can bring an end to this scourge. So there is more that can be done, and I intend to do everything possible, because many of the persons who become victims of this scourge are young people, and these are the people who should be taking over the country.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. This is indeed a big topic, so I'd like to give the other journalists an opportunity now, beginning with you, Onika.
Mr. President, you said that you'd like to do everything possible, but it is said that suicide is affected by socio-cultural factors, and there is no safe indication that what has worked somewhere will work elsewhere. How do you really intend to tackle this problem?
Well, to find out what can work here. We need to examine the circumstances, the conditions under which people live, causation, why do people commit suicide. Obviously, some countries have a higher rate than others, and I'm concerned as president that Guyana has a higher rate than other countries. It's not as though there is an average around the world, and we are just average. We are above average, and that is disturbing. So, in answer to your question, I would say that there are certain predisposing factors in Guyana, whether they're social or cultural or economic or geographical. There are certain factors in Guyana which maybe encourage or facilitate young persons particularly to commit suicide. And those factors are perhaps more prevalent in Guyana than other places. And I intend to find out why we have so many suicides. And once we identify those factors, try to use governmental action and try to get the efforts of civil society and households to bring an end to the scourge. We are above normal, and I want to find if it's social, if it's cultural, if it's economic, and bring an end. There are many cures. There are many cures, but we have to find what the disease is. Or I put it the other way, I know what the disease is, let's find out what the cures are.
Okay. Do you think that a reduction of access to methods and means of suicide is an effective intervention?
Not necessarily. If you prevent potential suicidal persons from gaining access to chemicals, for example, they use rope. They jump off a bridge, go to kite shore. So once a person or a couple intend to commit suicide, they will find the means if they have the motive. What we hope to do by governmental intervention is to maybe demotivate suicidal persons. So it is not a matter of depriving them of chemicals or depriving them of particular means. They will search for means if they want to kill themselves. And in other countries, people jump off of bridges. Here we jump off of kite shore. But quite recently, as you know, on the 6th of January, people use rope. You prevent people from buying rope. So we have to find out what are the causes of this scourge. And after that, I don't disagree with you. We can look at ways of removing some of the methods that they have used. But let's see what the causes are first.
All right. Abina, you're free to pose questions on suicide.
I have nothing on suicide.
All right.
Covered.
Your Excellency, if I can jump back in here. In the past, people would have determined that we're living in a stressful environment. We have been living in a stressful environment in Guyana for years, especially since, for example, the things like the cost of living is high. People are angry, people are uneasy and on edge. I know you're not a psychologist, but do you believe the situation, our lifestyle in some way would have contributed to the rise in suicide?
Not necessarily. Some of the persons who seem to commit suicide are not necessarily poor or live in depressed societies. I have been to some of those communities which are supposed to be notorious nests of suicidals, and the standard of living seems quite high. You know, people live in concrete houses, many of the families have cars. There are no traces of extreme deprivation or poverty or depression. So there might be other factors. Now, you mentioned one of them. My own view is that one of the predisposing factors might have been the troubles during the first decade of this century, the first decade of this millennium, when life had been cheapened. And that could have been very stressful, even though people might not have been directly involved in the killings, or their relatives might not have been the victims, but there might have been pervasive stress, pervasive depression. This was the most intense period of killings in Guyana's history between, say, 2000 and 2010. And that might have been a factor. But, you know, it's difficult to say how people might have been traumatized by that level of killing, but it's impossible to avoid the conclusion that it would have had an impact on some communities.
Finally, before we move on from this topic, sir, the last suicide case we saw, it was, according to the media reports, a 20-year-old who would have had a relationship with a 14-year-old. Are you concerned about that sort of lifestyle in our society, whereby we have grown men, what may seem to be grown men, getting involved with our younger women, young girls?
I would like to see the statistics. I don't know if that itself is a major cause of suicide. As you said before, there are several factors: poverty, stress, depression, maternal pressure, parental disapproval. Sometimes there's suicide pacts. Yes, the event that you're referring to might have been the result of a suicide pact. We need to do more work, and I intend to get our ministers together and take that suicide prevention strategy further, bring in NGOs, bring in international organizations like PAHO, World Health Organization. Let us look at best practices and try to reduce suicide. Let us find out what the causes are and apply reduction strategies. Under the law, that constituted rape. I mean, the person who impregnated the 14-year-old girl really could have been prosecuted under the law. It's a crime. So that is a factor that should not be ignored. So I'm not saying that it should be condoned simply because they declared love for one another. So again, the alert, I'm not criticizing or condemning the mother. If she knew that there was an inappropriate relation, a sexual relation with a 14-year-old girl, I mean, the mother had a right to intervene, because if it was a sexual relationship, it means that a crime was being committed. And whatever intervention she took, although it was quite robust, would have been, I suppose, aimed at preventing a greater crime.
All right, thank you, sir. Yes.
Sorry.
I think Abina's...
Yes, you found one. Go, Abina.
Yes.
Yeah, you wore one.
Mr. President, are you concerned that it's somewhat becoming a fad? And if so, would you call for less publicity in this regard? I mean, first we had the Kaito Falls, and then we have someone going right back there. Are you concerned that people are following a pattern here? And would you call for less publicity as a result?
It is possible. The copycat effect, I think, like I was referring a little while ago to the Worthy effect. There was an article in the Kaito News called the Worthy effect as a factor in juvenile suicide. It does open a window to persons who face situations like the chap Werther who committed suicide. The German story, a story of a German young man who was in love, and because he was disappointed in love, he took his own life. And it did have a copycat effect. That is why in psychology it is known as the Worthy effect. You're right. Once people feel that the way to get away from the misery, the way to escape from failed love affairs or domineering parents is to commit suicide, it is a contributory factor. It's a copycat factor. So I agree with you. Or to put it another way, I don't disagree with you.
So would you call for less publicity on it?
No, it is not a factor. It is not something that should be swept under the carpet. We need to know about it, and we need to deal with it. If we don't publicize it, we would obscure the crime, and we wouldn't be able to deal with it. I agree with you that if you publicize, it's a dilemma for the journalists, it's a dilemma for the media. If you publicize it, somebody will copy. If you don't publicize it, then you don't cure it. It's like a disease. You have to, tell the doctor what you're suffering from.
Mr. President, in this recent case,
All right, I know you would have been enjoying that discussion there, but of course we had to discontinue it because the focus from that was basically to talk about the issue of suicide affecting our nation. I know earlier I did promise you that we would be having the minister within the Ministry of Communities, Miss Valerie Patterson, but you know when we're working with ministers what happens, because they're running an entire country, so things happen at last minute and we have to change our schedule to facilitate that. But of course that's not a problem because there's so many various issues going on in our country. There are some other issues I'd like to talk to you about again, and this is just to go back to the note of suicide for a bit. There is even a part of that clip where you heard His Excellency talking about his concern about the relationship with one of the recent suicide cases that we had, where the young man was 20 years old and the young woman was 14 years old. Now, parents, especially mothers, I know that you're hard workers. I'm not blaming you. I know that you can't monitor your child or your children 24/7 because you have to work. Sometimes you have to do more than one job just to ensure that they have enough to eat and ensure that they're protected and cared for in other areas. But you also have to remember the mental state. Try your best to put aside some extra time to monitor them. Know who their friends are. Ensure that you know your neighbors, know what they do after school, know what they do during school. Because yes, I know some young women can be very slick at times. The older folks would say sly. So you don't always know what's going on. You don't know who's a boyfriend or not a boyfriend. But come on, a 14-year-old with a 20-year-old, it's ridiculous. It really is. I know these are very hard times, but I've heard stories whereby some people say that their mothers who actually approve these relationships just to, in a sense, help them to take care of that said 14 or 12-year-old or 13-year-old. I'm not sure what it was, what the relationship was, if the parent knew or not knew about it, but I am begging you, parents. And underage, even if it's consensual, it is still rape. So those are issues that we really and truly have to address, and we have to try our best to protect our girls, and not only protect our girls, but to protect our boys also. We must protect our children. Someone once said that we need to go back to the days when it took a village to raise a child. I know that's a bit difficult because life is now different. Modern technology is taking over everything. Everybody, everyone, even the grandparents and the great-grandparents have, a gadget. So it is difficult to pay attention to each other the way that you did, but we need to try. In order to save our nation, we need to try to do our best, and all of these things will contribute to reducing that seeming jump, that rise that we have in suicide cases. And again, before I come off this topic, I do believe that it's more than a government, it's more than a non-governmental organization, and it's more than the church, and it's more than an individual. We need to find a way where every resource, every effort is grouped to tackle it and attack this scourge. Whether you believe it's just mental issues, whether you believe it's just a devil or a demon walking around, we need to come together to solve the problem and address the issue. Of course, there are some other things that I'd like to also talk to you about. Unfortunately, we heard today in the news that there's been one reported case of the Zika. I hope the health experts will tell me that I'm pronouncing it the correct way, the Zika virus. As you know, we had the scare, the chikungunya scare, back in 2015. So now it seems that the Zika is an issue. But this is not to drive panic into any of you. According to reports, there's been one reported case of somebody coming down or having the Zika virus. So I just want to urge you just to be a little more careful with your surroundings. From what I've read, of course, it is spread by the Aedes mosquito. So ensure that your surroundings are clean. Ensure that you don't have old containers and old tires that can gather water. This is where those things, this is where the mosquitoes thrive. So ensure that your surroundings are clean and so on. Protect yourselves. If you can use repellent, also those will help. Ensure that you use mosquito nets. Not everyone's home has the mesh for the windows and the doors. So just protect yourself from it at all costs. Ensure you always consume lots of water. I always see that as a solution to some of the problems. And of course, look out for some of the symptoms. As I was reading today, one of the symptoms is heavy fever and rash. So some of the symptoms are similar to what we were told to look out for in 2015 when we were all scared. We were all afraid of getting chikungunya. So just be careful Clean your environments, of course. And on that note, the cleanup campaign, well, now it should not even be a campaign anymore. It should be ongoing efforts to keep our city clean, which mean all of you have to do your part to ensure that the city stays clean. I always cringe every time I see somebody driving and they just dump something out of the window, and you know, it thinks that it's okay. And you know what the unfortunate thing about it is? They are not doing that for the fun of it, you know. People have become comfortable in the nastiness. For them, it has become second nature. Okay, I'm done with this bag or I'm done with this box, just throw it out the window. And we cannot function like that. We cannot operate like that. We have seen our city transformed. I know there are efforts being made in so many other communities. Of course, those of you who follow me know that I also do a program called West Side Story, where that focuses on what's happening in Region 3. And from what I have seen, myself and the production team, from what we've been seeing is that people in Region 3 have also been cleaning up, clearing their drains, ensuring that their parapets are kept clean and so on. So I can only trust for now that the same things are being replicated in the other communities. I know some work has also been done in Bartica, whereby the intention is to ensure that that community becomes a town very soon. They're moving toward that. So I know cleanup efforts are ongoing everywhere. So we have a lot to focus on in terms of keeping our surroundings clean, healthy, and maintaining it and so on. The other issue, it's still an issue. You know, I was really big on this right before the holidays and during the holidays, because I know people used the Christmas season and so on to be consuming extra alcohol, because people just feel that that's the time when they should be free and just splurge and everything. But it's not only for those seasons we saw that. We're still seeing it. We're still seeing, when I walk around or drive around, I'm still seeing too many of those road marks. And you know, in Guyana, once you see those road marks, what it tells you, that there was an accident here or there was an accident there. Almost every day you see a fresh one or a fresh set somewhere, which means we're still not adhering to road rules. We're still not being courteous drivers. We're still trying to bully people on our roadways. And you cannot do that. It takes lives, it takes time, it takes money, you know, and it puts people out. So again, I am urging you to be safe on our roadways. Yes, because it is no longer the holiday season, there's less heavy traffic to deal with in the city environs, but you still need to be extra careful, because you never know what. And someone reminded me yesterday that when you're doing driving classes, you're told to drive or ride or whatever, or even walk as though you're the only sane person on the road. So you have to be careful and look out for yourselves, and also look out for other people if you want to be safe, have long and healthy lives, and not cause other relatives and friends and so on pain. The other thing is, this is 2016, which means it's the year of Jubilee, Guyana's Jubilee year. We will celebrate our 50th independence on the 26th of May. As you know, there is a lot going on to promote that, which means we are expected to see an influx of visitors. So we have to be on our best behavior. I'm not saying that when they're not here, that's an opportunity for us to behave bad, but it's promoting this year should, in a sense, restore our pride, the pride in our nation, you know, restore your patriotism and so on. So it's a time, it's an opportunity for us to really show who we are, to show our culture, to show that we can embrace our culture, and to show that we are all for our culture, and we protect it, and we will do anything to protect it. And of course, we want other people to respect it. So as you, every day, just keep remembering that we are in 2016, and it's the year when we will celebrate our 50th independence anniversary. It's our Jubilee year, and we should be very, very respectful of that. Certain things that people in other countries, for their countries, find sacred, I think in Guyana we have lost sight of that. We need to get that back. And even to quote the president yesterday, of course, you know, His Excellency President Granger, in the National Assembly, he told the National Assembly that this is the year for national unity. So we have a massive opportunity this year to do what we have to do to get back to where Guyana was, where we once embraced our culture and embraced patriotism and so so on. We have a lot to do. Of course, you know, many persons are coming on board. You would have seen recently in the news that even Caribbean Airlines has come on board because their first aircraft has, I think it will be more than one, but the first one has the logo, the 50th anniversary Jubilee logo. For those of you who have not seen it as yet, or you've been busy preoccupied with other things, which I find is impossible because it has been out for months now. You go to any news site, anywhere, you can see it. It's the jaguar. Of course, as you know, the jaguar is Guyana's national animal. It's the jaguar with the 50 and so on. It's and I even saw a vehicle with the entire vehicle has the jaguar and 50 years and so on, and that made me really, really proud. Many more persons need to become like that. You don't necessarily have to put the stamp on your car, but the way that you act, the way that you carry yourselves and so on should be telling people that you are preparing to celebrate big in 2016 because it is Guyana's 50th independence anniversary. Also, of course, as I prepare to wrap up today's program, remember we're also in the year of local government elections. Again, the president also raised that in the National Assembly yesterday, and you know, one of the reasons the Ministry of Community was created instead of having a Ministry of Local Government, the reason the Ministry of Communities was created is because the government feels that we need to do more to come together as a nation, and one of the ways in which you can do that is by strengthening your communities, ensuring that your communities are clean and so on. So we are all looking forward to local government elections. Keep your ears and your eyes open. I know some persons still have many questions on local government elections, but I truly believe that this year, local government elections will be a learning process for all of us because we've not had it for so long in this country. So most people, even the people who are working inside and contributing to it, have questions and so on. But some of these things unfortunately, we will have to learn as we go along. But I will continue to have persons coming on this program, whether it be Minister Bulkin himself or some councillors or even the deputy mayor, whoever. I will continue to have persons on this program talking and sensitizing you about local government elections as we move forward. You will learn how you will vote and where you will vote and so on. So I'll have persons coming up to talk about local government elections on this program. Well, I have said a lot. On behalf of Minister Valerie Patterson, let me apologize because I did promise you that she would be here, but I'm still promising you that she will be here eventually. As you know, this is a government. These are people who are running and managing our country and trying to make some of the decisions, and they're involved in consultations and so on. So sometimes there are things that come up that cannot be avoided. But in the meantime, I would like to thank the commandant for the Guyana People's Militia. As you know, we're also really happy about the re-establishment of the Guyana People's Militia. It will do so much for our country. So I'd like to thank the Commandant, Colonel Patrick West, for coming on this program and talking about the Guyana People's Militia. It was certainly a pleasure, and it was certainly good to hear about it from him as the head. And on that note, I will wrap up today's program. I'd like to thank you very much for tuning in. As always, thanks for always supporting Facing the Nation. And of course, next week, tune in next week because I will be chatting with the U.S. Ambassador to Guyana, Ambassador Perry Holloway. He will be on the program next week, and he'll talk about Guyana's relationship with the U.S. and so on, what we can expect from the U.S., what he expects from Guyana. Lots to talk about on next week's program. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for tuning in. Be good Guyanese citizens. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Goodbye.